Hey everybody, my name is Jacob. Welcome to Part-Time Film School. Yesterday was the Oscars, and I enjoyed watching the Oscars. I thought it was a fun show. There was definitely some cringy things that happened. Maybe some awards I wouldn't have agreed with, but that's not the point. Today, I want to talk about what it would look like if we had a micro-budget film award show like the Oscars. I was just trying to check Twitter to see who had suggested this yesterday, and I can't find it. Someone suggested it. They're like, hey, we should have some micro budget film awards. You know, the micro budget version of the Oscars. And I thought, that would be fun to think through. So I wrote down a couple thoughts. All right. So first off, let's think through what that would look like. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple different things. What would be the purpose of that sort of award show? Who would be the governing body deciding who wins? What's the process for picking winners? And what would the awards show look like? Okay, so let's think through this for a little bit. First of all, let's talk about the purpose of an award show like the Oscars. If you listen to Charles Haine on the No Film School podcast, he often repeats this, and I've never double checked this myself. That the reason why the Oscars were invented were to break up unions, to get people distracted thinking about awards instead of like unionizing to try to get better wages and things like that. I haven't double checked that for myself. So maybe the history of the Oscars is a little bit tainted, but regardless, there are some benefits to an award show like this. It draws attention to some movies that would not have gotten attention otherwise. And that's probably the best reason to have an award show like this, because there's no way micro budget films are going to make it onto the Oscar scene. Yesterday, my son, he's watching, and he's like, "You're a director, why aren't you there?" It's nice to hear, but I also know that there's rules to get into the Oscars in the first place. If I was ever to get an Oscar, it's probably for a documentary film, because those are an easier barrier for entry in terms of budget. But still, it's the same people being nominated over and over again, and that's not me. But let's talk about micro budget films. Okay, so what would the purpose be? I think the purpose would be to promote the best of micro budget filmmaking. It's simple to say, but that would be the purpose, right? To highlight, to promote, to draw attention to it. It's like, of all the small little indies that were made in this sort of style, these were the best that we found. Okay, so I think that's the reason. It's a good reason. I go for that. There's a little bit of a... I would want to avoid some things, and that is, there's a lot of film festivals that are really out just to make a quick buck. And there's a lot of film festivals that, in the name of trying to promote films, will take your money and not give you much back in return. And so we can't just have an award show to pat ourselves on the back and make us feel good. We have to be able to build up some credibility. And so we need to come up with some rules and a good governing body to figure this out. Governing body can't be Joe Schmo who decides to have a film festival and call them the Micro Budget Film Awards. You could totally do that. That'd be great. I love the idea of promoting that. I've had my own film festival in the past that catered to micro budget films to draw attention to it, but we need some credibility to come from this. So I think we need a governing body. Now, good or bad, if we want to talk about what's good or bad about the Academy is made up of filmmakers. And regardless of their diversity, we'll put that to the side. Let's talk about that idea. I love the idea that it's not some group that appointed themselves. It's a group of active working, in theory, working filmmakers. That I like. So I think the first step for having quality, credible micro-budget film awards is to invite a governing body of members to participate. So you look around, you let people know what you're trying to do, and this may take some time, but you invite them to be part of this organization so that when we have awards to review, you send it out to all the appropriate categories, and then you have a good system for people to vote on it. So you need a governing body, and it has to be made up of micro-budget filmmakers. All right. So I think that's a good start. Another way to get some sort of credibility might be to attach it to some sort of established film festival. I don't know that I like that per se. I think it has to be its own thing. At its heart, the Academy Awards are a film festival, except that the showings are global. They can happen anywhere. The rules, if I understand it, you need a theatrical screening. It was a little bit weird during COVID, but you need a theatrical screening of like 1 or 2 weeks. It's kind of famous when you look at The Room with Tommy Wiseau. But because he had to buy out a theater. Anyway, I think we need to figure out what those rules are. I don't think I want it to be part of a film festival that's established. I think it needs to be its own thing. But that brings us to our third point: process. There needs to be a way for the governing body to see these movies. And so a typical system, let's say we're going to go through Film Freeway or something like that. People would submit. Those who are adjudicating would have an opportunity to participate and to be able to see, probably a streaming copy. But maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a central hub. Maybe there's a way to highlight these movies. And obviously money is something that you would need to consider, because making nice awards would cost money, even if people are donating their time to get some sort of war chest, if you will, to be able to pay for this whole process, to promote, to things like that. I don't know. You might need to pay for submissions. I don't know. I feel a little bit weary about charging money for this process, but it's probably necessary. Okay, so how do we find out what the best movies are? They have to be submitted. Now, the process for the Oscars, there's certain rules for who qualifies or who doesn't. So let's say we're going to have Microbudget Film Awards in 2025. What would qualify you? Well, we'd have to figure out some sort of budget level for what qualifies for microbudget film. We'd probably have to have some sort of rule, like it was released during the 2024 calendar year, and some other sort of criteria. That's how you figure out who qualifies. And then, of course, they have to volunteer their work to be part of the awards. They have to submit it. Now, the question is, how many awards do you give out? Do you want to try to match the number that are given out from the Oscars? Maybe that's the way you want to do it. If the whole point is to create a governing body to promote microbudget films, then more awards, probably the better. So that means you would have a best picture, you would have documentary films, you would have shorts, you'd have features, you'd have acting, you'd have supporting, you'd have all those different categories. You bring in some of the other things. So they're introducing stunts, right? Now, this is a little bit tricky if you want to promote this. If you want to use the SAG definition for microbudget film, you can't have stunt work in a microbudget film. I don't know. Something to think about, because it no longer qualifies under the micro-budget contract for SAG. All right, adjudication. How do you vote? So the way the Academy works, as I understand it, I'm not a member of the Academy, but I think this would be interesting. You have people who are invited because of their expertise in that particular field, for example. So I love listening to the Script Notes podcast. John August is a member of the Academy for screenwriting. He's an active screenwriter, been very successful, lots of movies made that he's written. Those are the sorts of people that you invite to participate. The interesting thing, though, is when you're first starting and you're inviting people to be part of this academy, micro-budget film academy, whatever you want to call it, whatever this governing body is, we need a good system for figuring out who would be best to be involved and to participate. And then you need to come up with rules for, like, how are people nominated and that whole process. But that adjudication process, so once nominations are made, you take the top 5, the top 10, depending on your category, give or take. And then you have a second round. You go through and you pick the best. Now, for the Oscars, they have some rules for campaigning and things like that. That would all have to be thought through. But whatever that process is, we have a way for submission. We have a way for access, whether it's through Film Freeway or physical submissions or some sort of event where we highlight and we promote these films, like an actual film festival. I don't know. Something like that. And then adjudication process, it's probably best you get as many people as possible and they're active, working, and or experienced filmmakers. All right, that takes us to the ceremony. What should the ceremony look like? Well, you can rent out a nice venue. You can invite people out. You can do the red carpet thing. People might really enjoy that. That adds a lot of credence and credibility to it. Much better than let's just have a live stream. But you'd want to live stream it as well. Now, it'd be great if you could get someone to pick it up to broadcast it. But the reality is it's probably got to be some sort of streaming platform. Like YouTube, Twitch, Vimeo, something like that. Now, an interesting partner in this would be someone like Tubi. To go to Tubi and say like, hey, we're doing this thing. We want to do it right. Do you want to be the primary sponsor for this? You know, maybe it's the Microbudget Film Awards brought to you by Tubi or something like that. In that case, Tubi could say, stream it, and that could be really interesting. I like that idea a lot. But I don't know. Someone who's much better at business would be the one to figure that sort of thing out. So I think there has to be an in-person component. I think it has to look nice. It can't look cheap, even though we're literally there to celebrate cheap movies. It can't look cheap. It has to feel good. It has to have high production value. Some appropriate sponsorship might be nice. You know, now who are the people that might want to sponsor an event like this? You get the sort of probably product companies that are involved in this space. You get, you know, I don't know, someone like a Moment that puts on their own invitational event, and they promote, you know, YouTube filmmaking and things like that. I don't know. Maybe you get your product sponsors, your Aperture, your whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to approach it. Someone who's better at business could figure that out than me. But I think it has to have an in-person event. I think it has to be accessible for people to see, or else how is it promoting? And the process has to be transparent so that people know, okay, this wasn't just a bunch of friends got together and decided to give themselves awards, right? And there has to be some promotion. So if you could get someone like Tubi on early, that would be a good place, knowing that there's a place to share this, to promote this, to get this out in the world. You let people know early in the process, you promote. So there's got to be a little bit of funding in the war chest to put that out there. And then you need some lead up time. You know, maybe you do it around the time of the Oscars. Maybe you do it in like March or something, so that there's enough time for the whole adjudication process to happen after the end of the year. It gives some filmmakers time to submit their work, or maybe even create a project and do that then there. That is the micro-budget version of an award show. But what about making it adapted and kind of like a creative, distinct? You know, maybe you want to have a 48-hour film festival. So I've run a festival in the past. We didn't do it this past year because of our venue is under construction. But we had a film festival called Gila Valley Film Festival, and we only accepted micro-budget films. And my favorite part of it was getting people in person, the sort of convention part of it. Let's get like-minded filmmakers together. Let's talk about filmmaking. And I think that might be the best part of something like this, is get people together to network, to talk, to have fun, and not just, you know, give each other awards, though that is really great and really important. All right, so let's recap. Purpose. The purpose of an award show like this would be to just promote, to get the good word out there, highlighting quality films made on a budget. Governing body. The governing body has to be made up of established, working micro-budget filmmakers. Probably start out through an invitational process, but need to find a good way to get as many people involved as possible. The process. There has to be a submission process. Maybe that's through something like Film Freeway. Maybe it's through, some sponsor like a Tubi or something like that. There needs to be a way for those who are adjudicating to be able to see those awards. So, there would be a mechanism through Film Freeway to do something like that. Just identify everybody as what's the word? As judges, and they get a little tricky on the back end for trying to get 100 plus people involved, maybe, but that's it. And then of course there needs to be a process for adjudication, first to nominate, and then to pick winners. So there'd be 2 rounds, I guess. And then the ceremony has to be broadcast in some way. It has to have a live component. It has to look nice, and this has to be something that's worth doing. So let's say you get a big sponsor, someone like Tubi. Maybe you put in, you start your war chest with a few $1 million. You don't spend it all the first year, but you market, you pay for a good show, a good event, and then you build up that war chest, and you do it year over year. And it's through the history and the tradition of the event that it starts to build some credibility. It promotes the work. It gets it out there. And I'm sure if you have a sponsor like Tubi, they'd want to use people that are on their platform. But that also seems limiting, that it has to be people who are on Tubi, and not everyone's going to be there. And that's a bit limiting too. All right, those are my thoughts. What would your thoughts be if you made your own award show for micro-budget filmmaking, or someone did it? What do you think it should do? What do you think it should be like? This was my thoughts. I'm curious what you think. I'd love to hear from you in the comments, and yeah, I'll be there looking for what you have to say. Thank you. Bye.